He was willing to pay for the damage, but what a price he would pay. It was an accident that pitted doctor against doctor and one country's laws against one family's desperate pleas. Did it really have to end the way it did? Here's John Larson.
My husband loves fish tacos, and he loves fishing down there. I mean, he loves fishing down there. He'd go 3 or 4 times a year.
Melody Kraft is talking about her husband Don, a tall, good-natured man with a wide smile. And the place he loved, a slow-paced part of Mexico called Baja California, just a few miles south of where the Krafts lived in San Diego.
What was it that you liked about it?
Well, it's pretty and it's different and it's a real foreign country so close.
But just how foreign, just how different, is something the Kraft family only now understands. And the nightmare that started on this stretch of Mexican highway 1 hour south of San Diego has people on both sides of the border shaking their heads and vowing to change the way two countries handle emergencies.
Mexico's a beautiful place, but don't ever get in an accident in Mexico.
It was last August 24th. Don and Melody Kraft spent the day on a Baja beach with their 3 young sons, Kevin, Tyler, and Christopher. At about 5:30, the family set off for their hotel in the town of Ensenada, just a few minutes south. Don started to make a U-turn across the highway.
And as he did, another car came speeding and hit his door.
Did you ever see it coming?
No.
Melody jumped out and almost without thinking, she says, began snapping pictures of the accident. The boys were all right. She was not injured. The couple in the other car seemed fine too. But Don Kraft was in bad shape. His driver's door took the brunt of the blow. His neck was in pain. And the first thing he shouted, "Get me back across the border."
It's the first thought.
Get me to the United States.
Take me, drive me there, because he knew we wouldn't get the proper medical attention. And he knew that it wasn't okay. I mean, he knew instinctively.
Those instincts would prove right soon enough. But at that moment, they were stuck in Mexico. Their badly damaged truck was not going anywhere.
Where they are going to take a gentleman and recently have an accident on the highway.
Dr. Manuel Velez runs a medical service in Ensenada. One of his ambulances was sent to the scene and brought Don Kraft to Ensenada's Carmen Hospital. There, these x-rays were taken. Dr. Velez and others quickly realized Kraft had a broken neck, a condition not immediately life-threatening, but one that could lead to paralysis if not attended to right away. And the hospital, doctors knew, did not have the facilities to treat Don Kraft.
They request an immediately transport to the United States because of the condition of the victim.
Velez had one of his ambulances stay right outside the hospital, ready for the hour-long drive to San Diego. Paramedic Fernando Gomez was put on standby.
We brought the ambulance immediately and put it outside to, you know, as soon as possible to get him up to the States.
The head trauma guy came and said it's expedient that he goes to a trauma center. Look at his x-ray right there. Look at that black spot. There's something seriously wrong here, and he needs to go now. I go, okay, let's go. I'm ready. Let's all go.
Don Kraft was still able to move his arms and legs. He could still talk, but time was critical. The faster he got to a trauma center on this side of the border in San Diego, doctors said the better his chances were of not being paralyzed. But suddenly, according to Melody Kraft, there were delays. She didn't understand why until she recognized the man at the hospital.
And he was standing in the whole time when Don was having x-rays, talking to the doctors in Spanish. You know, they were conversing in Spanish, and being in there the whole time with Don. And I didn't know who he was until I saw him get an x-ray.
He was Antonio Garcia Sanchez, the driver of the other car in the Kraft's accident. Doctors say he was not severely injured. The woman with him, a co-worker, needed a neck brace. But because Don Kraft was making an illegal U-turn, Garcia Sanchez had filed charges that Kraft was at fault in the accident. And Garcia Sanchez, witnesses say, was not going to let Kraft leave Mexico.
I was hearing the interview when the doctors told him, you know, Mr. Kraft has an injury that has his life on the line, and he can die, and there's no equipment here in Ensenada or in Tijuana that can be used to help him. You know, he needs a special surgery, and that you know, can be done only up in the United States. You know, and And he didn't care, basically. You know, he didn't say anything.
But it was now 8:30 p.m., 3 hours since the accident. Don Kraft was being kept on a gurney in this x-ray room in constant pain. Melody Kraft, alone with her 3 children, did not understand what was going on. She didn't know Mexican law. Suddenly, she says, an armed police officer was placed outside Don's room.
He was under arrest?
Yes, he was under arrest. Here, he has a broken neck. He's on a gurney. He's not going anywhere. He's screaming out of pain. I mean, he's in total agony. My kids are sitting on the floor. They're young boys, and here their dad, you know, they see their dad with this guy with the gun.
Then, Melody says, Dr. Velez said Garcia Sanchez would release her husband for $2,000.
The cost of the car, or damages, or medical expenses.
The Krafts had purchased Mexican insurance from a toll booth along the highway, but it was minimal. What Garcia Sanchez wanted was a bond. Under Mexican law, it was a perfectly legal thing to do. In fact, everything Garcia Sanchez did from this point on was, under Mexican law, strictly legal. But was it in the spirit of the law? Was it the right thing to do? As you'll soon see, if anyone should have been counted on to do the right thing, it should have been Garcia Sanchez.
We have a bad luck that day. Everybody, not only Donald, the doctors don't take care of him too.
Dr. Velez says he offered to give Garcia Sanchez the money himself. After all, it was now late at night. Banks were closed. ATMs wouldn't give out that much cash. But Velez and others say Garcia Sanchez refused and would only take the Kraft's money.
Everybody's upset because this is the first time in 12 years and we have a situation like this.
It is now 10 p.m., 4.5 hours since the accident. Don Kraft was still on a gurney in the x-ray room.
He kept saying, what's the hold of Melody? Come on, what's the problem here? And see, I knew I couldn't tell him everything because all I would do is rile him up.
With their children asleep on cots in a room nearby and the night ticking away, Melody and Don were getting desperate.
And I asked Dr. Velez, couldn't I tell you it's my decision to just drive that ambulance and take my husband across the border? And, you know, against the ruling of the court? No, you'll be shot.
It's like you're a fugitive.
I never in my life felt so helpless and hopeless.
Outraged by what was happening, Dr. Velez drove Melody through Ensenada at night, trying to let authorities know what was going on. But there was not much the doctor could do, because it turned out Antonio Garcia Sanchez was not just any man involved in an auto accident. He was an attorney general for Baja California, and not just any attorney general. Garcia Sanchez, who was going by the book as a man with a broken neck lay on a gurney, Garcia Sanchez is Baja California's attorney general for human rights. It was close to midnight. Melody and Dr. Velez drove now towards the public ministry to meet the attorney general and plead their case.
And he told me in the car, you need to stop this. He says, you need to talk to whoever, your governor, your, politicians, your president, whatever. You need to tell people that this isn't okay.
There was still an ambulance waiting, ready to leave. They could still be across the border in an hour. There was still time. But as they drove, Melody did not know that the price of her husband's freedom was about to go up.
Oh, you want this now, huh? Yeah. You want this? Go get it!
It's got to be the dog chow. Dog chow is packed with everything your dog needs to build and rejuvenate strong muscles, so he can keep on amazing you day after day. Incredible dog food, incredible dogs. Purina Dog Chow brand. Here's another healthy option. Bring home the great taste and smaller bite-sized shapes of Dog Chow Little Bites. No matter what size your dog, he'll love you for it.
Let's go, girls.
Liquid Lip, totally new from Revlon Color Stay. Liquidy smooth, liquidy soft lips. And kiss off? No way. Revlon Liquid Lip. I feel like a woman.
If you took the diet drug combination known as Fen-Phen or the diet drugs Pondamin or Redux, you may have heart valve problems and not know it. As a result of a proposed class action settlement, you could be eligible for free medical testing and compensation, but you must act promptly. You must decide whether to participate in this settlement by March 30th, 2000. If you do nothing, your legal rights will be affected. Call 1-800-386-2070 today.
I want it to be a new way of looking at things.
I want it to be larger than life.
I want it to be a customer magnet.
I want it to be the second industrial revolution.
It should transport me wherever I want to go and take me back to where I came from.
I wanted to level the playing field.
Nortel Networks is building the new high-performance internet to be whatever you want it to be. So tell us, what do you want the internet to be?
A cash cow.
Come together right now over me.
It's the winter sale and clearance at Pier 1. Right now!
Extraordinary savings.
Take 20 to 50% off.
There's no better time.
Right now! To shop at Pier 1. Because when it's gone,
It's gone.
the winter sale and clearance. At Pier 1! It's right now!
We worry about them running around barefoot.
Not eating their vegetables.
Never wearing a sweater.
But too much cold medicine. It never occurred to us.
Till Tyler's last cold.
We were giving him medicine for a fever he didn't even have.
Now we use Triaminic.
All medicines can have side effects, but with Triaminic, we choose the formula that's right for his symptoms.
So there's no chance of side effects from unnecessary medicine.
Triaminic lets you choose the right relief without the worry. Now there's new Soft Chews tablets that dissolve magically in an instant. Easy to give, easy to take Soft Chews.
Dateline NBC, honored by American women in radio and television with 5 Gracie Allen Awards. The year's most honored news magazine, Dateline, will be right back.
NBC Next.
We're missing 18!
A building becomes a death trap.
We hear you!
We got live explosives inside. Get the bomb squad
We
down
got
here.
2 men here with critical injuries trapped under
Their biggest rescue yet.
We're not leaving.
I love you.
Love you too, Daddy.
They can only save one of them.
A heart-stopping third watch, NBC Next.
Tomorrow, the women to watch, remarkable people who will change your life in the 21st century. Who is this undersea explorer and grandmother? NBC Nightly News tomorrow.
From our studios in New York, here is Jane Pauley.
Returning to our story, Donald Kraft, seriously injured in a car accident, lies on a gurney in a Mexican hospital while his wife tries in vain to negotiate his release. Even his Mexican doctor says he needs special treatment available in a hospital across the U.S. border. But the driver of the other car has filed a claim, demanding payment of a $2,000 bond first. And Melody Kraft is about to hit yet another roadblock. Once again, John Larson.
Up to 120,000 Americans cross into Mexico through the border near San Diego every day. The U.S. consulate in Baja, California says it handles about 2 cases a month of Americans injured there who are quickly transported back across the border. In fact, one official at the American Embassy in Mexico City told us he had never heard about any incident of Americans detained after a car accident. Never. That is until Donald Kraft.
We went from the hospital to the Dr. Velez's office, making phone calls to the government office, back and forth, all these places all night long, just desperately trying to figure out how best to get him out of there.
It was now past midnight, August 25th, 8 hours since the accident. Don Kraft, his neck broken, was still lying on a gurney in an x-ray room in Ensenada, an armed guard at his hospital door. His wife, Melody, meanwhile, met with the other driver in the accident, the man who it seemed was holding up Don's release, Antonio Garcia Sanchez, Baja's Attorney General for Human Rights.
To his face, I go, oh, so what is your title anyway, sir? You know, and he told me, I'm the, the Attorney General for Civil Rights. I go, then why don't you give my husband some rights here and give him the right to live?
And what did he say?
Nothing. I never in my life have seen someone so cold and so without feeling that he could just, he'll be fine, Mrs. Kraft. That's what he'd say to me.
At about 1 a.m., the phone rang here at the San Diego home of David Kraft, Donald's brother.
I pick up the phone, and it was a lady's voice that was pretty hysterical. I didn't know what was going on.
It was Melody asking David if he could somehow find $2,000 in the middle of the night and bring it to Mexico. David says he woke up neighbors and got their ATM cards. Soon, he had enough to withdraw the $2,000.
You figure we're home free.
I've got the money. I'm ready to go down and get my brother out.
What happened?
It went to $5,000.
5?
Right.
Dr. Velez called to say the bond was up to $5,000. By this time, the American consulate in Baja was involved. Officials there say they placed 30 calls to Mexican authorities through the night, trying to get Don Kraft released. None worked. Then, around 3 a.m., a new message. The bond demand had been raised again to $7,000.
Let me ask you the obvious. I mean, no way you had $7,000 in your pockets.
Of course not.
Was there any chance you could write him a check?
No, he wouldn't take it.
Or a credit card?
No, he wouldn't take it.
So what are you supposed to do?
He wanted my money, my own money.
Just after 3 a.m., Dr. Velez, increasingly worried, called Celia Diaz in San Diego. Velez thought he'd found a way to break the logjam, because Diaz runs the Binational Emergency Medical Care Committee, a group that says it's evacuated 10,000 Americans with medical problems from Mexico over the last 26 years. She phoned Garcia Sanchez.
What I need is for you to, to drop the charges, and I will make sure that Mrs. Kraft will sign a letter stating that she is responsible for damages to your vehicle or to you personally or to your companion, and I will make sure that you get reimbursed.
According to Diaz, Garcia Sanchez says he could not decide alone because the woman passenger in his car was injured. But then, Diaz says, the passenger got on the phone.
She says, well, the thing is that Mr. Garcia Sanchez, he is the one that's in charge of the case, so you need to speak with him.
Diaz says the Attorney General then asked her to call back in 20 minutes. When she did, Diaz says, no one picked up the phone. No deal was made. In 26 years, she told us, that had never happened.
In this situation, I'm not exactly sure what happened. I guess that we felt that we were running into a steel wall.
According to Mexican law, prosecutors say victims in accidents are free to drop the charges, especially if there's a medical emergency. But early on the morning of the 25th, here in Baja, a state doctor visited Carmen Hospital, apparently sent by Mexican prosecutors, to judge the seriousness of Don Kraft's condition. According to witnesses, she never even examined him, just looked at his x-rays and charts. And despite protests from the other doctors, she declared him in no immediate danger. And then she left.
She said, well, we're going to see how the case goes, and we're going to see what happens.
Paramedic Fernando Gomez says he confronted the state doctor.
What happens if he dies? Because who's responsible here? Who's going to be responsible? Supposedly, this Mr. Antonio Garcia Sanchez, he's in charge of human rights here in Baja. Okay, so this is a person that can die. And where are the human rights? We are not animals.
3:30 a.m., 9 hours after the accident. With the bond now at $7,000, Melody called her parents in San Diego because she knew they had some cash.
My mother and dad have some money saved up for their funeral costs. They're both older, and my dad's 81, and that's what she had. And so I thought, well, that's the only person in this world I know that would have that kind of money at this hour in the morning.
Her parents went to gather up the money and start the trip to Ensenada. Also at 3:30, Don Kraft was moved to a more comfortable room. Doctors say his neck was swollen, his movements were stiff. Paralysis was starting to set in. Time was clearly running out. Then, at 6 a.m., Melody looked up from her husband's bed and, to her surprise, saw Garcia Sanchez himself standing there. She made one more plea.
I'll stay here. Put me in jail. I'll give you my house. I don't have it right here in my hand. I'll give you my car. But just let my husband get some help. Just please let him get some help.
What was the response?
Can't.
Then, Melody says, her husband spoke up, asked her to wake the kids and bring them to his room while the Attorney General was there.
He said, Boys, this is a really hard lesson for you to learn. Kevin, Tyler, and Christopher, you look at that guy in the face. You look at his face. You always remember that guy's face. Next time you want me to take you camping or take you to the beach or take you somewhere, you look at that guy's face.
According to Melody, Garcia Sanchez said there was nothing he could do. His hands were tied by the law, and walked away. At 7 a.m., Melody looked out the window and saw what she had been waiting for. 2 cars with family members driving toward Carmen Hospital.
It was like, well, somebody's going to save us here. Maybe. They got the money, the thing they want.
But there was more waiting. At 9 a.m., the courts opened. Judges ruled the bond demand was excessive and reduced it to $2,700. Then there was more red tape, Melody says. By now, Don Kraft, his situation getting worse by the minute, needed to be flown to San Diego. The plane finally took off at 12:30 p.m. August 25th, 18 hours after the accident.
I was just so grateful. I was like, oh, good. He can be okay. He'll be okay.
What did your husband say at that point?
He was just trying to hold on, you know. He knew he was in serious problem.
What do you want?
Don Kraft was right. When he got to the trauma center in San Diego, this avid fisherman, this father of 3 who was playing with his boys on a beach just the day before, was paralyzed. He was soon transferred to another hospital for longer-term care. Doctors on both sides of the border say the long wait contributed to Don Kraft's paralysis. What happened to the Kraft family set off a huge controversy in San Diego. So much so that the Mexican consulate there agreed to investigate. Melody Kraft waited to find out how the Mexican government would deal with one of its own. On August 31st, the Mexican consulate released a 2-page investigation saying Garcia Sanchez was not at fault. The report instead blamed the delay on a controversy regarding diagnosis between the state doctor and doctors at Carmen Hospital. The report added that fortunately, Mr. Donald Kraft II is now in stable condition and on his way to recovery. But 1 week later, on September 6th, there was a code blue in Don Kraft's hospital room.
They came out and they go, it's not looking good, but we're working really hard. And then I go, you can't. This is my best friend. You can't take him. It was just awful. That just seemed like, it was bad enough trying to get him there. It was just like...
The swelling in his neck restricted Don Kraft's ability to breathe. He died of pneumonia. The San Diego County Medical Examiner tells Dateline this complication might have been prevented had Donald Kraft received prompt care. In a news conference in Mexico 2 days after the accident, Garcia Sanchez again said his hands were tied because there was someone else in his car and that he had no control over legal events.
It is necessary for federal and state authorities to intervene to determine who is responsible. These authorities are not under the control of the Attorney General for Human Rights.
So we asked for interviews with those authorities, the head of the Mexican consulate in San Diego, state prosecutors, and the state doctor involved. We were told no, or our requests went unanswered. We also arranged to speak to Garcia Sanchez for this story. But on the day of our interview, the Attorney General for Human Rights called to say he wouldn't show up. We asked to reschedule. He said there would be no interview. But Juan Manuel Salazar, Baja's Attorney General and Garcia Sanchez's boss, did talk to us. The keys to the delay, he says, are that a state doctor ruled Kraft was not in danger and that legal paperwork takes time.
Procedures and documents that have to be done in any country, in any state in the world.
You're saying paperwork needed to be done and the expert doctor said there was no emergency.
What needs to be cleared is that Mr. Kraft was at fault for a crime. But in all this time, he was in a hospital, receiving medical attention, and of that there is proof and records.
He wound up paralyzed and dead. What does that suggest?
Once he was set free, we do not know what transpired or happened.
Salazar also told us that Garcia Sanchez was not in control. He was driving a government car, had to report the accident, and couldn't stop the legal procedure from moving forward. Still, Salazar also says that if someone else offered to pay the bond that night, Garcia Sanchez could have accepted it. But even though doctors and Celia Diaz say they offered money several times, Salazar tells us he's seen no written proof those offers were ever made.
The way it looks on the American side of the border is that Donald Kraft's only mistake was he hit the wrong guy. That Garcia Sanchez blocked reasonable efforts for him to be taken out in a timely fashion.
It's false. I think it's false. Mr. Kraft, who was the one that caused the accident and was at fault, had to be submitted to the legal procedure.
Mexican government says, regardless of what you may think, this was all done according to procedure, that the Attorney General was within his rights to file the complaint.
But what about a right to have life? I mean, they overlooked that little clause, didn't they?
The Mexican medical personnel who tried so hard to get Donald Kraft released are disillusioned too.
There's no human rights here in Mexico, I think. And I know, it hurts. It hurts because for the fault of one person, you know, a lot of people go through that, you know, and that's not fair.
But Melody Kraft says she and her boys try not to think about that. Try only to take it day by day and remember the father and husband they once had.
I can't fill my life with hate. I can't hate this or that because I have kids to live for and I have my life and it will destroy me. But I sure hate the situation, and I sure don't want it ever to happen to anybody's husband or anybody's father or anybody's brother. We don't live in that kind of world. I mean, it's unbelievable. We don't live in that kind of world.
Mexican and U.S. officials have met several times since Donald Kraft's death and say they're close to setting up a new system for dealing with severely injured Americans caught on the other side of the border. It would stipulate that Americans be transferred out first and legal red tape dealt with later. What do you think? Give us some feedback. If you're over 18, you can call us at 900-678-4622, which will cost you 95 cents a minute. You can also send us a fax at 212-664-3330 or reach us by email. Our address is dateline@nbc.com. We'll have the results soon on Dateline.
It's coming.
I'm Craig Rivera, bracing for what may be the storm of the century.
Now sit tight for the worst hurricanes ever caught on tape. Plus, exclusive animation. What could happen if a storm the size of Floyd slammed into a city? It was supposed to be a family trip to paradise. It wasn't supposed to end like this. A brutal car accident. Then stuck on a stretcher for 18 hours with no way home.
We're in this together. We'll be okay.
One family's traumatic story. Plus, why are these women pulling out their own hair? And why can't they stop?
I couldn't control it anymore.
And the kid who just can't stop singing. Now, Inside Edition with Deborah Norville.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Just as people are taking precautions in advance of Hurricane Floyd, when you go on vacation, you should also take precautions. People buy traveler's checks, they copy their passport numbers, and they stay alert. Well, here's a story that tells all of us why. Steve Noble with a cautionary tale which started with one safety step not taken.
We're in this together. Yep. We'll be okay.
It all felt like a bad dream, like something Don and Melody Kraft were going to wake up from. But the days went by, and there they were, in the same living nightmare. It began with one of the happiest times for this San Diego family, a trip south of the border with their 3 sons. But before they crossed the border here into Mexico, the Krafts admit they made a big mistake. They failed to buy the private Mexican insurance that would have provided them security on these roads. Careless? Perhaps, but maybe you simply don't think about bad things happening in a place as beautiful as Ensenada.
We were just at the beach. It's a really nice beach. It's beautiful, and it was very secluded, and we were just getting ready to go back to the hotel.
Here's Don Kraft posing for a photo, never suspecting it was the last time he'd ever stand on his own 2 feet. Just 15 minutes later, he was making a turn on this road when suddenly it happened.
He looked both ways. It was clear. It was nothing, and he was going this way. And as he turned out, this car came really fast around the corner and hit him.
Melody and the boys were unharmed, but Don had suffered a broken neck, leaving him paralyzed.
Anybody in a traumatic experience like that, especially broken neck, minutes count.
But minutes would turn into hours. 18 hours strapped to a gurney at a local hospital before Don was flown to a trauma center in California. Why the delay? You might not believe it. Let's begin with a phone call that jolted Don's brother David from a sound sleep.
I was told you need $2,000 and you need to get down here right away. Your brother's been in a serious accident and he needs trauma care.
Soon, the Krafts say that figure would reach $7,000, a combination of bond money and medical transport costs they say they had to pay before Don could be released. Melody was in shock.
And I said, please, put me in jail. You know, I'll stay in jail. You can have my house. You can have my car. They're not right here in my hand, but you can have them. You know, money's on the way. No, and he wouldn't accept any of that. Nothing.
Who was he? Melody says it was the other driver, Antonio Garcia Sanchez, a Mexican human rights official, seen here with a passenger from his car who was hurt in the crash.
Here he is the person that's supposed to support human rights and protect human rights, and he was the exact opposite.
Since the beginning, I has been very clear. I did not ask for money from the Kraft family. I did not threaten the Kraft family.
That's what Garcia has to say through a translator. He also said it was other Mexican authorities who decided to treat the accident as a criminal matter, requiring a bond in keeping with Mexican law. Mexican police said Don was at fault.
If a person is seriously hurt and needs help, shouldn't that be the first priority?
Sonia Navarro is the acting deputy attorney general in Ensenada.
Safety was the first concern, and he received treatment immediately after the accident.
But apparently not all the treatment he needed. At last, Don's wife scraped together the money she needed to get him onto a plane and en route to a trauma unit in California.
Are you hopeful?
Yeah, I mean, I have to be. If I'm not hopeful, then, you know, then that would be awful. It's the thing that's saving me, you know?
Unfortunately, hope was not enough. 2 weeks after the accident, Don died from his injuries. Would Don be alive today if not for those 18 hours he spent strapped to a gurney? Dr. Manuel Velez treated Don soon after the crash.
Do you think he would have died if he would have gotten quick transportation?
If we take him right away after the accident, he have better chances.
For me personally, what's an issue is I don't have a brother right now. I don't have a brother because somebody wants money.
An epitaph for an unlucky man, victim of one unimaginably bad break after another. But when it came to his family, Don Kraft was fortunate indeed.
Your family loves you and your boys love you.
Unaware the end was near, Don had hopes for a bright future. And even after all he'd been through, he had warm words for the place that cost him his life.
They will.
You love Mexico?
Yes.
But I'm never going there again.
The Mexican consulate in San Diego said that they have scheduled a binational meeting to try to find ways to improve the handling of emergencies like that of the Kraft family.